Welcome back. You're watching the Commodity Trade. Now, we've been joined by Sumit Bagadia and Prathamesh Malia. Prathamesh, what's your view on gold and silver here? And we actually saw that in the first 7-8 days, again, even after the US jobs data, the gold prices, again, were not just ready to actually go below $1,300. So what do you make out of current strength, and what would be a good strategy here?
I think it is all got to do with the momentum that's happening in the euro area, when they have just stated that they would possibly wind up the $2.3 trillion bond buying program. That is something which gives a serious question whether gold would rally from here on. But I think we're seeing a correction in the near term, possibly for gold as well as silver. Gold possibly heading towards 29,100 or 29,000 mark. So we are seeing a possible correction from these levels, and we would not be buyer at these levels, either in the spot or either in the futures market. As far as silver goes, again we would be seller at these particular levels and possibly expecting 38,400 in the near term, possibly for 2 to 3 trading sessions.
Very interesting. I think both our guests actually have a contrarian views here. Prathamesh, actually, let me ask you the reason for it. What do you think actually why gold and silver actually could go lower from the current levels? The trend again over the last 5-6 sessions has been whenever there is a minor dip, gold again basically has bounced off from that sort of dip here. So are you expecting a reversal in the dollar here, or you basically are expecting a sort of a very high buoyancy in terms of the equity markets after usually the first 10-12 days the allocation start happening? Is that sort of something which you think the risk appetite could be decreasing? Again, gold, silver perhaps actually could be getting a negative sort of headwind from there.
I think it's a mix of both, Piyush. I think equities across the world is performing very, very positive. In India, it is performing really bright. So in that sense, commodities again is something which is contrasting, and specifically that to gold. But yes, the second point factor that you really mentioned is the turnaround in the dollar index. I think a dollar possibly would be on the strengthening side, take into consideration the factors surrounding US, wherein optimism is built up. The tax overall being implemented in the US would all bring good factors in the overall economy, and besides 2 rate hikes on the cards in 2018 would really not spell good things for gold. So I'm really not bullish in gold for most of 2018. I think from higher levels it would possibly correct, and this is really not the right levels to possibly make your mark even in this physical or as well as futures market. So I think gold and silver both would possibly correct down.
Right, Prathamesh, that also means that you just don't expect any sort of correction in the equity markets, which have been on a continuous tear since last many months here. Prathamesh, coming to you, basically, what's your view in the metals here, and again, which one will be a good strategy to play? Especially, we have seen that across China, also in the Asian trade, again, largely, it has been a singular sort of bullish move over the last 15 sessions, whether it's base metals, whether it's steel, iron, coking coal, chromium, like in fact everything actually has been rallying. What's your view there?
I think, Piyush, the broader fundamentals for base metals really seem to be on the positive side if you're really looking from a long-term perspective. But taking into consideration the near-term factors wherein China would go and leave for Lunar New Year holidays, I think there would be a slack and possibly base metals would correct down. So I think we are seeing correction in almost most of the metals. So specifically talking about copper per se, 455, 456 is what it's trading at. Possibly it will possibly move towards 440 mark is what we're looking at. But then saying that, I think we would prefer buying copper just for a 2 to 3 trading perspective, and possibly look for 7 to 8 rupees higher move from here on. But as far as zinc is concerned, I think 218 seems to be the top out, and would see possible correction from here on. Although taking into consideration the factor that the stocks for zinc and the LME is close to around 2008 lows. So the broader fundamentals remain very strong for all the metals, but immediate near-term correction seems to be there on cards for all the metals, and to be very specific in nickel, nickel is moving without any particular reason. I think 780 is what we're looking at for nickel from here on.
Right. I like the way actually you're talking about nickel here. Perhaps a lot of arguments actually are for nickel related to the electric hopes here. But then again, copper, if I'm just looking at your call, again, it gets triggered right itself, 457, target 440. Let's talk about the energy here. Again, that one space which has been very hot over the last few sessions here. Pratmesh, coming to you, both on the oil and natural gas. Oil around $70, do you see a selling opportunity, or perhaps it's good to be actually with the trend, the way actually hedge fund managers have been doing, net long positions at multi-year high levels? What's a good strategy here?
Piyush, I think oil markets are overheated since December. It has gained 13%, very fast move. Although the factors remain supportive, OPEC doing its bit to support the oil markets, oil inventories in the US consecutively down for 8 weeks. Everything said, but I think markets are really ignoring the fact that US production would very soon touch 10 million barrels per day, which seems to be the highest point in the history of the United States. Take into consideration, we would possibly see correction in the counter. Although the near-term trend says it would be positive, I think 4,100 is the maximum that we're looking at from immediate for 2 to 3 trading sessions. But just to put through a note of caution, if you're on the long side for oil, we would possibly see some correction from 4,100 mark.
Right. So right now, basically, Pratmesh has a buy call here on crude oil 4020, where the call triggers right now. The at present around 30, almost very near to the entry price here, target of 4100, and again that's where again Pratmesh sees some correction happening here. Thanks a lot, Pratmesh and Sumit, for all the insights about which sort of commodities, including precious, energy, and base metals, one should be placing their eye on right now. That was all we had on this edition of the Commodity Trade News.